Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Self Starter Podcast. My name is Nicole Lauren, and I'm here with Jane today. I'm so excited to have her as a guest on the podcast. We just recorded for her podcast as well. So I'll put a link for that if it's out already in the show notes. But thank you so much for being here, Jane. I'm excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure. We were just chatting for the last hour and now we're chatting again. I could talk to
I
you all
know.
day.
It's so great. I love it. Yeah, and you're in New York, so it's fun to have a northern perspective on the channel, which I feel
Yeah.
like I don't usually have. So that's awesome.
Northern
Oh, cool.
English perspective.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Okay, cool. Well, tell us more about yourself. Introduce yourself to the audience.
Oh yeah. Well, I am Jane Goodrich and I am not someone that works with monkeys. So people actually confuse me with Jane Goodall. But yeah, Jane Goodrich. And I've been a newborn and family photographer for over 40. So I started full time in 2010. And I've coached many photographers in business, on the business side of it, not necessarily on the creative side of photography. I think most that's definitely well covered in our industry.
Mhm.
And more recently, I did develop a software platform to help photographers run their businesses more efficiently and price themselves correctly.
I love that. That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's such an important topic. I think as photographers, I know for me when I was just starting out, it was hard to determine where I fell with pricing. There's a lot of comparison out there in terms of like pricing, like, okay, well, I'm not as good as them, so I can't be charging that or whatever it might be. And I was at a conference recently in January, and some other one of the ladies there, she was telling me about pricing, and she was like, "Yeah, I book 10 to 15K weddings," and I was like, oh, like that's like really high. And she was like, she was in a place that I'm not familiar with. So, I mean, it's in the States, but I didn't really know, like, oh man, that sounds like very like exciting. And I would love to charge that much. And she's like, you can. And I was like, I don't know if I can. And she's like, you can. She's like, it's just that you charge it. Like, I'm like, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. So yeah, I'm curious to hear more about pricing and your thoughts on that. Yeah, tell me more about
Yeah. Well,
all
one,
that.
you
Yeah.
can. You
Mm-hmm.
just have to make a package for it, right?
Mhm,
I'll coach you, right? All you have to
mhm.
do is make a package and put it
Yeah,
on your website
right.
or raise your prices, create the package, and then someone books, then you'll know, right?
Mhm. Right.
You can still keep your other packages for now, just
Yeah.
make sure you're profitable. Just because I've sort of been around the industry a long time,
Mhm.
even I was part-time before, just seeing a shift in the industry.
Yeah.
And in a way, I think it's, great. There's a lot of education out there. But it's very noisy when you're first starting out
Mm.
to
Mhm.
find the right information.
Yeah.
Back in 2008, 2009, you would go on Google and there'd be the photographers there ranking number one that had been in business for
Mhm.
10 years.
Yeah.
Or alternatively, if you're like, oh, they charge $250, but it's actually what you don't know when you're first starting out is that's just the session fee. They are
Yeah.
not giving their
Right.
images. And there's a whole sales process that they go into that gets them the $5,000 sale. So
Yeah.
it's really hard. I will say nowadays, I'll give anyone listening that's just starting out in photography is like, it's not you, right? It's sort of the
Mhm.
industry. Like we don't have, standard pricing. We don't,
Yeah.
you're not really apprenticing with somebody that's telling you, hey, by the way, every 1 hour of shoots, you've got 9 to 12 hours of back end work. So
Mhm.
calculate that in. Oh, and by the way,
Mhm.
your camera, you're going to need to replace your camera in 3 years and your computer, and you need insurance and you need all this. There's
Yeah.
no one sort of telling you that. So that's why the prices that you see, plus when you start being a photographer, you're likely not going to be able to afford your own prices. Like, well, I wouldn't pay that. So you have this self-doubt. So I'm quite linear. We talked about this before on my
Mhm.
podcast when you're sort of like, I came from a law background, so I like certain things a certain way. And I actually really love maths. Don't I don't tell my clients because they think I'm just a wacky creative, but I love maths and I love numbers and I don't think numbers lie. So prior to the pandemic, I was going to teach a course in pricing. I had the whole idea of like teaching a business
Yeah.
course. My dad's a professor of business. He actually taught, business and music. It's very
Mm.
similar. I was like, well, he knows, he's engaging. He can do the sort of the teaching part. I'll just do the numbers. And then I realized like no photographer's going to take it, Jane. What are you talking about? They just want the creative side.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'd done all this research, right? For like over,
Yeah.
now we actually still keep it going. So it's like for nearly 4 or 5 years of time studies, which you talked about, like
Mm-hmm.
how much does it take to actually from start to run a photography business?
Yeah.
Thousands of photographers have actually taken this
Wow.
time study and also gone through in their costs. What's the average cost of a photographer
Mm-hmm.
that's been in business 4 years
Yeah.
plus to run a business? Because then
Mm.
it'll help. So we ended up with Picsello, we ended up incorporating the calculator in there. And so that really helps. You go in there, how much income do you need? Because that takes out well, you're in New York, Jane. That's why you can charge $1,500 for your newborn. It takes it out.
Yeah.
I have a highest cost of living in my area.
Mm-hmm.
So you might be in South Carolina. Maybe you don't, your studio is cheaper than mine.
Mm-hmm.
Your income needs are cheaper than mine. So it
Yeah.
takes that out, So, and what income, how much hours do you want to work, goes through all the costs. And then
Mm-hmm.
it comes out at the end. And, it also goes through, by the way, you need to pay self-employment tax,
Yes. Right.
standard 15%. And, so it's sort of like, it's really kind of in your face a little bit of like, oh, this isn't
Yeah.
all I can't take home all of that $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
And the price will likely shock most people because you're not really aware of what you need to charge at first.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I've seen people raise their prices to the number and it be fine, right? So it's all about the mindset. And I think for me, once oh, I have costs, and by the way, I'm never going to decrease my editing time, because you know what? I get pickier.
Yeah.
So at first you're like, oh, it takes me this long because I'm new.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna take you that long.
Mm-hmm.
I've done the time studies. You just get pickier, and you just
Yes.
get like, I'm gonna actually remove that trash can. Before you
Yeah.
couldn't know how to do it. So
Right.
once you have the confidence with all these costs, you're able to say, well,
Mm-hmm.
gives you the confidence to charge it
Yeah.
versus someone saying, Jane, you need to charge $2,000 for that shoot. Why?
Right.
Now I know the why.
Mm-hmm.
Versus somebody, like people are like, you just want me to charge more because, I'm in your area and this, that, and the other. I'm like, I don't care what you charge. I have enough clients. I just want you to make money when you come home at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think the sort of the depersonalizing it and just the numbers just don't lie. So
Yeah. I love
that's
that. Oh, you touched on so many good things. I want to kind of break them down a little bit more. So, first of all, you talked a little bit about Picsello. So, I want you to tell us more about what that is. But then also with that, you said there's a calculator in there. So, I'd love to know what, if anything, would you consider to be the best place to start for people that maybe don't know how to price themselves? What considerations would you tell them to look through? So, could you tell us more about
So
that?
for me, there are quite a few calculators out there. Don't get me
Mhm.
wrong. If you Google photography, costs of
Yeah.
doing business, there's calculators out there. But the one thing that they're missing is the time it takes, all the back end work that's hidden,
Yeah.
that's like social media, education. And it's also missing the average people pay. The average time, like if you've been in business 4 years, which is why we only studied it, because there is a first 3 years, I'm going to no, I'm not going to buy a new camera,
Yeah.
because you don't need it. So
Mhm.
in business, when's the replacement cost? So I would just actually say, because we do have a free trial. I mean, so we open up the free trial just so people, if you want,
Mm.
just go to pixello.com, sign up for the calculator and go in there. I'd love
Yeah.
for you to use the software, because there are things in there that actually helps you make more money. That's sort
Mhm.
of intricacies, because I wanted the software to work for photographers,
Mhm.
not just for it to just upload photos and send it. Like, no, you're going to work for us. And so it does its little job. So you're like business assistant. But then, yeah, and we actually reply and say, if you need help raising your prices, we have a lot of, information on how to raise your prices, when to raise your prices. Guess what? It's not January 1st. It's actually in the middle of busy season. The best time to do it is we're in the middle of, or at the beginning of a busy season.
Mhm. I
Raise
love
your
that.
prices, because otherwise you're going to think, oh, I don't have any
Yeah.
inquiries. It's my pricing. No, you don't have any inquiries because it's January. And
Mhm.
14
Yeah.
years in this business, I will tell you, no one has,
Right.
inquiries in January, not very few. It
Right.
will decrease a lot.
Yeah.
So
I love that. So tell us a little bit about more what Picsello is and like give us the little blurb about it in case people listening don't quite know what it is.
Yeah. So if you're listening and you're like starting out your business, one of the things that Pixello aims to do is sort of streamline all the boring parts, right? Sending inquiries and follow up. So, you have a website, put the contact form and it comes into our software and it sends an automatic email saying, oh, Jane will be right back, in within 24 hours. So it gives you a little bit of breathing room. And then you can send a ton of automated emails and follow up on those ghosting inquiries. So it's a little CRM studio manager-ish. But then we also have, an online client booking scheduler. So if you have mini sessions or you do portraits and you want to sync it to your calendar and be like, hey, every Friday I'm doing headshots. So I'm going to just go there, I'm going to schedule it and I'm going to put it on my website. If someone wants to book automatically, they can book it online. Best mini session scheduler ever, because what happens is if someone starts filling it out and they go and their kids screaming and they like, oh, I forgot that. I saw that mini session on Facebook, but where was it? It's gone now, right? Like the computer dies.
Mm-hmm.
We actually send them an automatic email because they've given us the
I love
email.
it.
So we'll say, hey, and then we also have, the invoicing, the contracts, like this, the scheduling. Now they, happy to put your templates in into the terms and conditions. Those, so like questionnaires, it sends them. One of the things that's different from for us is, I sort of don't love a million emails to my client. I like one email. Send me the questionnaire, send me the proposal, the contract, the questionnaire, the deposit in one email. I don't want to be going back and forth and signing a contract, making a deposit. Just send me one email. So I'll definitely, our clients love that and the photographers love it. And then we also have like the gallery delivery software. So you have the ability to like send digital images in a gorgeous gallery as well as sell products.
Mm.
We partnered with White House Custom Color, so that allows our photographers to sell prints, greeting cards, albums. It's been fantastic. We've seen a lot of photographers increase their product sales from just giving away the digitals.
Mm.
And one of the best things, I personally think it might be my favorite part of the platform, is if you, and we all do this, I did it before Picsello, you sell a package with 5 images, it's a
Mm-hmm.
mini session image, headshot image. Can you be bothered to choose? Or can you, go back and forth? Maybe you're proofing it fine. They can choose it. But most of the time, the behavior we see is like people just like, I'm going to give them 17 and I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
So because you're not valuing the digitals, well, guess what? Pixilla, what it makes you do is like the clients can only download 5. You
Oh,
can
okay.
upload as well, as many as you want, but guess what? They're going to have to buy more. And we've had photographers undercharging. No one's going to pay $600 for a mini session in my area. I'm like, okay. So they had it for $100, $150, still low. But then guess what? The client bought them all. He said, forgotten to turn off, like it's very
Yeah.
integrated. So
Yeah.
it's like automatic. There's no code that you need to put in 5 digital downloads and send them a code. It's all automatic. And they're like, oh my gosh, email me, because we'd done a whole calculator
Yeah.
class of like, you need to be charging 600. Well, guess what? This person paid them 650. And I said, look, they can and will pay this in your area. And
Yeah.
so guess
That's
what? She
amazing.
went back to the calculator, did it, felt much more confident and raised her prices. And maybe she only raised her prices to 250 for the mini session, but she knew that she was able to, okay, now I'm going to do 10 for 20. She was not just giving them away. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, that makes it all worthwhile, but the
Yeah.
software's doing it for you without you sort of knowing and messing up. There's no messing up. You don't like, oh, I forgot to put the 5 images in there because I'm really busy. And now they've downloaded all of them and I've lost my money. You
I
can't
love
do
it.
that with us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Very cool. That's
Yeah.
exciting. I love
It's
it.
fun.
Okay, let me see. I want us to just talk more about, so we talked about pricing, like some of the considerations, obviously, account for taxes and how much time it's actually taking you to edit and the things that are on the back end that you might not always think about. And then also, for me, I think when I tell people, when I coach people how to price, I think it is important to consider your area and where you are and what the competition is doing. I think that's a factor. And how much time it's taking you, the cost of doing business, your goals for the year, and how much you want to make in the year, and then breaking it kind of down backwards from that. So I
Hmm.
think all those are really good practical tips, for pricing. But when it comes to mindset, I think that's a really big part of pricing, is going back to that first little blurb I was talking about at the conference, where the lady was just like, you can charge that. And I was like,
Hmm.
what? But walk us through mindset when it comes to pricing, because I think that's like 90% of the battle. I think 10% of it is, yes, we need to look at these data points and see how much it's actually costing us to do business, how much time it's taking, what other people in the area are charging, and then our goals for income. I think all of that is important, but I think 80 to 90% of pricing and valuing ourselves starts with our minds.
100% agree. And I think I will say, you can, and I think in the wedding industry, it's a little bit easier to look at people that are pricing themselves in your
Mhm.
area, because you can look on the knot. But by the time the people have gotten on the knot and they're paying for ads, they're sort of established. Whereas, if you're a mini session photographer, you're looking at someone on a freebie Facebook page, and they're not charging anything. And also, so many people in my area are not ranking high on Google either, but they've been in business 20 years and charging, $5,000 for a portrait session. So I
Yeah.
will say, take it with a pinch of salt. But you're right, is like, you do want to look at your area. But if it is, so one thing I would say is, if you look at your area and you can see these 5 photographers that you're sort of similar, and first of all, get out of your head that you're not good enough to charge. Get
Mm.
out of your head. If your website reflects your price and someone books you, you're fine, right? You should
Mhm.
see my website from 2010. I have no idea why someone would pay $950 for a family shoot in 2010 for my work. Sorry, clients. But, hopefully they're not listening to a podcast. But, you just have to get out of your own head, because what's hard now is everyone's looking at all these gorgeous images, and,
Yeah.
and someone's so busy. They might not be so busy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I still post like 5-year-old, because my Instagram, I don't get clients from Instagram. I get them from word of mouth,
Mhm.
my past clients referring me, and I get them from Google being high on ranking. I don't get them
Mhm.
from social media.
Yeah.
But, and actually I've neglected my Instagram for a while. But a side note, because I have to figure out what I want to talk about on my Instagram. But anyway, the thing is for mindset is, I think one of the things that you have to think about is, how many clients do you really need,
Mm.
right? That really helped me, because I did go through a phase of, and I've been in business 14 years. And yes, I started off pricing correctly from the get-go, but I've sort of, had my bad years where I'm like, oh, so-and-so's charging less than me. And I'm like, blah, blah, blah. And
Mhm.
my husband's like, you're busy. You're always busy. Like, how many clients can you do? And my father-in-law was like, you can get too busy. Right. So it's
Mhm.
like, but I'm like, I want them all,
Mhm.
right? I
Yes.
want them all, but you don't
Yeah.
need them all. And so, like, a family photography, you want to be full-time, probably shoots 90 clients a year.
Mhm.
If you work 35 hours, yes. If you outsource a ton of your editing and you work 60 hours a week or whatever, but, and you're going to be working more in the fall, but you really only need 90, right? So
Mhm.
let's talk about that. Let's look at the local schools in your area. How
Mhm.
many kids do they have in the area? I mean, my town's very
Yeah.
small, and there's 700 kids in that one school, 7 in the elementary. So there's about 6,000 kids and like 5,000 families
Mhm.
in my little village in town.
Yeah.
How many do I need of that? 1%? And
Mhm.
actually, there's other towns around me. So let's do a radius of like
Mhm.
where people are coming from. And let's look. Okay, so there's 100,000 families within an hour of me,
Mhm.
and I need 90. How do I
Mhm.
get the 90?
Mhm.
That's not that many. Just because there could be a lot. I mean, a lot of photographers out there servicing those 100,000 families. Same thing with weddings. Okay, let's look at weddings. Okay, 2 million weddings a year in the US.
Yeah.
That's a lot of weddings.
Yeah.
The average wedding photographer does between 20 and 27 or something like that. And our calculator is 25.6. I don't know where the 0.6 is, but that, 25 weddings out of 2 million. if you are a destination photographer, but look in your area and then it takes, you're like, yeah, you know what, you're right. And maybe those one, I think what's really hard is at first is to get those first clients, because what happens is you service them, you're doing well, you get to know your ideal client and who they really want. And then you also have referrals. They come back. Maybe they're coming back for a family shoot if they're a wedding, or they come back every year if they're a family photographer.
Yeah.
So you just really have to think of like, there's a lot of more humans out there than you think.
Yeah.
And you don't need to do them all.
That's so true. I love that. I love what you were saying about, I like that you broke down the numbers. Like you said, there's 100,000 in my area and I need 90, like
Right.
and when you think about it like that, it really pulls you out of that comparison trap, because
Mm-hmm.
I know for me at least, a lot of the people that I coach, they come to me and they're like, I am not getting leads, or I'm not getting bookings. Bookings are slow right now. I hear that a lot, right? In
Mm-hmm.
currently times. And, I think a lot of that is probably coming from, well, so and so photographer down the road keeps posting that they keep booking and I'm not booking. But then,
Unfollow them.
yeah,
Unfollow them.
unfollow them. Yes, this.
That's better for your mindset.
Yes,
Unfollow someone
yes.
that's triggering you.
Right,
Unfollow them.
right. But also, you don't need all the weddings that so and so is booking. You need the
Right.
weddings you need to book, right? And
Yep.
so I'm a big proponent of profitability over popularity, in
Mm-hmm.
that I want to be very profitable, and not necessarily that I need to grow my vanity metrics like social media following
Right.
or like these other vanity metrics, because that's those numbers, or like my number of weddings, is not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily going to translate into dollars or profitability in my business, right? It's
Yeah.
it's what is actually bringing in success for what I want it to look like,
Right.
just because I booked 20 weddings, who knows? Maybe that person is charging $1,000 per wedding. Like, we don't know. So it's like, it's so true. Like, you need to figure out what it is that is successful for you, and then
Mm-hmm.
go find those people. And it doesn't have to be all the families in your area, all the weddings in your area. It's like
No.
10 or 20 or however many.
Right. And
Yeah.
then even break it down to like, if you're in the weddings, like I need 5 wedding florists. I need 5 venues. I don't like, oh, so-and-so is a preferred vendor at this one. Guess what? There's a ton of venues in your area.
Yeah.
And I have same thing with the families is like, I sort of am like, okay, I need to get 90 now. And then, if I can get repeat clients, like, what is that? Like, I want
Mhm.
repeat clients. I don't want to get new clients. So yes, I'm going to get attrition. People move away, or they're only going to do family shoots every 2 years.
Yeah.
Fine. But it's not the same volume as like 90 to get beginning. And like, I will say, I know we're wrapping up, but I will say, as the best thing you can do for your mindset is, if you are on social media and you are saying so-and-so's busier, unfollow them. It can
Mhm.
be, it's fine. Unfollow them unless they're inspiring you. You
Mhm.
don't really need to know what they're doing. Someone had I don't know if it was a coach that told me, and I think I have the best name for this. It's like, stay in your lane, Jane. And
Yeah.
I do have the best name, but I recommend everyone stay in your own lane,
Mhm.
because what somebody else is doing, you had no idea if they're posting,
Yeah.
styled shoots or anything. Just stay in
100%.
your lane and focus on yourself.
Yeah,
So,
I love that. I think that's such great advice. And I think the last question I was going to ask you is, if you're not getting leads, if you're not feeling like there's inquiries coming in and you're tempted to lower your prices, what would you say to someone like that? And I think that kind of answers it, but do you have any
well, I
other
think,
for that?
yeah, I think one of the things you have to do is sort of look at all of your marketing, and pricing is part of marketing. It's like price,
Yeah.
product, let's do the 4 Ps of marketing. But,
Mhm.
your price, you could also be in the dead zone. You could be
Yeah.
too cheap for the ones that really value photography, and too expensive for the ones that are going to price shop. So
Mhm.
look at that, run your numbers again, but also get out of social media, like get out and get the relationships, go talk to prenatal yoga studios, go talk to, wedding stylists, depending on your business. Social media, we think that we're working, but in person, and don't be afraid. Like, they're not scary people, they're humans, right? I say networking without the cringe, but I also say, like, it's making business friends. Like,
Yeah.
these friends, my very, very good friends now are connections that I have made from my business. And
Yeah.
they're also can help you in the lonely times when you're like,
Mhm.
you know, or they
Yeah.
understand you. So small
Mhm.
businesses, I'd say that's my number one thing is like, even it can even be the Italian restaurant that you go to or
Yeah.
your hairdresser, you know, talk to your hairdresser, go talk to your hairdresser about doing a cross promotion.
Mm.
You know, look at your website, you know, like it's a, you know, I sort of invest, I would say actually invest in
Mhm.
a business coach like you, because I
Mhm.
think that we definitely need to get, there's no easy fix,
Yeah.
right? And what works in your market might not work in another, but it's not all about social media. That's what I see a lot of people is like, and also get out of photography Facebook groups
Yeah.
talking about you not got any leads. How
Mm.
about going and doing, you know, going and meeting somebody for coffee that, you know, can refer you business.
Yeah. That's so true. I love that. I love all of what you said. Well, thank you so much
Thanks.
for coming on the podcast. I would love
This
for
has
you to
been great.
share. Yeah, thank you so much. I'd love for you to share where people can find you. I'll also include links in the show notes for everything that you mentioned. But yeah, where can everyone find you and follow along?
Yeah, well, my main website is janegoodrich.com. It's where I sort of house the podcast that will hopefully be live soon, and also talk a little bit about, you know, my blog, a little bit about the industry and tips. And with Picsello, it's picsello.com. And same things with the, you know, the social media handles, but those are the best places.
I love it. Well, thank you so much again. And thank you, listeners, for joining us for this episode. We'll see you next time on the podcast.